Please rewind this cassette.
All right, today we're going to be breaking down America Ferrera's iconic girl boss speech from Barbie, the highest grossing film of 2023 and one of the most celebrated films ever directed by a woman in the history of cinema. There's been a lot of debate about the scene since it came out, and there's been a lot of coverage on it recently on Twitter now that it's been on Max for a little bit and people have rewatched the movie. So I'm just going to talk about it like the speech word for word here. I don't like this scene. I didn't like it in the theater. I didn't like it on rewatch. I'm glad that other people are starting to turn on it. How it feels like a monologue you would hear at an open mic at a coffee shop circa 2015. How it's a Tumblr post. It's at that level. It's at the level of like a 14, 15-year-old girl, which would be fine. I have no problem with that. You can write something at that level. But when people are praising it as the most important speech in the history of women speaking in cinema, and this great defining moment, like, oh God, we all just feel this way. Thank God somebody finally said it. Somebody finally said that life is hard and people judge you. And there's like basic standards that people have for each other. I'm just glad somebody was brave enough to write it. Greta Gerwig and her old white feminism. This is what happens when a 38-year-old white woman writes a monologue for girls when she's stuck in the BuzzFeed era. This is a blog post. That's what Greta Gerwig wrote here. I don't want to hear any of the bullshit about it's a film for kids. That's all I keep hearing. Well, it was written for little girls who've never heard feminist theory before. What is with this fallback whenever you criticize something in a movie? It's a kid's film all of a sudden. Hey, I didn't like the new Star Wars movies. Well, they were made for little kids. Okay, are you trying to be dismissive about that then? Like Toy Story's made for kids. I like that movie. The Wizard of Oz, I guess you could say, is a kid's film. What does that even mean? What is a kid's film? Is it the rating? Is it the content of the movie? It seems very subjective when you think about it, what people actually define as an adult film and a kid's film. It seems to flip flop depending on what they think. Even this, if this is a kid's film, then it's PG 13. PG 13 would imply that it's for teenagers and up, not for children, but people would still tell you it's a kid's film because it was based off a toy brand. What little kid is getting the references from this movie? There's like Pride and Prejudice, Colin Firth references. Everything is talking about stuff from the 90s or the 80s, stuff from Greta Gerwig's life. I do not believe for a second that this was a film written or targeted towards little children or little girls. It's very clearly written for like 30 something, 20 something women, written by one. And like once again, most of the references, most of the things the movie's talking about, almost all of it is aimed at millennials. There's very little things in it besides like the colors and some of the action scenes and some of the goofy gags that I think are for children. Like, what kids are there for the Allen jokes or even the patriarchy jokes? What little kid is going to get the patriarchy jokes? But whatever, okay, it's for little kids. Even if it is for little kids, like, this speech isn't really that big of a deal for like kids. It's not like someone's going to hear this. Like, is a little girl going to be like, this is how I feel all the time at like 6 or 7? It just doesn't make sense to me. And we'll go through it to explain why. But like I said, I'm just tired of hearing people defend this, either that it needs to be said or that it's for children. That's disingenuous, and you know it. This is not a children's film. And I don't want to hear, oh, it's based off a toy, so it's a kid's film. Clearly, they didn't go make a kid's film when they made this film. I'm not saying a kid can't watch it, but quit trying to downplay. So we're going to nominate this film for Academy Awards and talk about the brilliant screenplay and how deep the themes are and how it's groundbreaking, but then we're also going to say it's for little kids to comprehend and it's not for adults.
We have to always be extraordinary. But somehow we're always doing it wrong.
Okay, why? Explain this to me. Okay, so what she's saying is we always have to be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. Where has it ever been based that women always have to be extraordinary, especially in the modern day? I get generationally or historically we can talk differently, but in the modern day, what is the standard that women have to be extraordinary? This is why I don't understand. This is why it's like a coffee shop speech. It's something you write when you're immature. It's like I remember years ago I saw a gay kid at a coffee shop at a poetry reading, and he had this poetry about the years of his life where he's like 5 years old. I find this out about myself. 10 years old. My parents are judging me. 15 years old. I kissed the first boy that I ever loved. 20 years old. I tell my parents. And I'm not knocking any of that, but it's like these very basic sort of ways to set up like a flow to get a point across that you do when you're younger. And this idea of like you have to be fat but not too fat. You have to eat but you can't eat too much. You have to be fun but you can't be too fun. Like it's just stuff that clearly projects an insecurity that a lot of women have or a lot of writers have, I would say. Certain types of people, and they think that it's these universal truths. Like everybody feels insecure and have a hard time doing it. And I get they're saying that the theme of the scene is that Barbie's understanding these things for the first time because she's just now processing the real world. But even that doesn't really work in the movie, because they come from a matriarchy and then they get a slight taste of a patriarchy, which is like Ken and them riding around on horses with sticks and being lame. Like that's not an actual patriarchy. It's all done like satirically, but then at the same time, it's supposed to be Barbie feeling these real human emotions. But she hasn't experienced the patriarchy only for like 5 minutes when she goes to the real world. So why is this speech supposed to be this big emotional moment? And people saying it's for Barbie's character development, then why are you framing it to where it's the actress directly talking to the audience and then people treating it as such? Once again, people like to change what the meaning is. They're going to be that, I think people just don't have media literacy, so they didn't understand what the scene was actually about. It's like, no, it's very obvious what the purpose of the scene is. It's a battle cry for women.
Like, you have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin.
Based off what? That's the thing. What There's things that they say like you have to be thin, but you have to be healthy, but you can't be too thin. I mean, that's just normal. Like people don't want other people to be fat. Like, yeah, I don't want everyone to be unhealthy. And I think for the most part, like if you're thin, it's fine, but don't be too thin. Well, yeah, you don't want to be too thin because you might have some health problems if you're too skinny. Not that that's universally true, but there are women and men who suffer from anorexia and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think these are just common sense things when they're like, don't be too thin. Do you think fat guys don't get judged? All fat people get judged, even though we pretend that we're nice about it. Most fat people are being judged harshly. And this idea that like there's this double standard, because that's what it's trying to imply is a double standard. It's like, well, men can just do this, but if women try to do this, they can't do too much. Why? Like, and also once again, like you probably should be thin. It's probably better for you in life to be thin or to be healthy. Those are all positive things. Also, if a girl said she wants to be thin or healthy, I mean, if people are giving you shit about that, just get different friends or different people in your life.
You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass.
Okay, once again, this makes no sense. When has it ever been established that women need to have money? That's not a stereotype I've ever heard of women needing to have money and not ask for money because that's crass. How is it crass to ask for money? That's a weird word to use for this in the context, but is that a stereotype that women need to have money? Isn't more of the stereotype that women are thought of to just be housewives who live off men, and a lot of men are stuck in that mindset, and that needs to change? Because quite honestly, in the modern day, you should have money. That's normal, especially if you live in America, if you live in a capitalist system, if you're a man or a woman, if you're anybody, you're supposed to have money. And I don't know why women are you trying to imply like women asking for money for OnlyFans or something? Maybe I'm ignorant, but I've never heard of this thing where women aren't allowed to ask for money. That just seems made up. That's not a stereotype, and like I don't know. I just don't get this. Like women are supposed to have money. When was that ever a thing? I've never heard that.
You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're
Yeah, that's normal. So this is the whole girl boss argument. Like you got to be a girl boss, you got to be a boss bitch, but when you start being assertive, you're mean and get called bitchy. There's a version of that for men. It's called assholes. This has already been established for years. Every time you say when a woman's being mean or aggressive in a leadership role, she gets criticized more than a man. That is not true. People don't like asshole aggressive men, too. They might like them sometimes. I get that there are more popular men that get by on aggression, but I mean, it seems like what she's saying here is that like people just don't want you to be overweight and mean. But it's all these like once again, it's just these quasi double standards that particularly an older breed of feminist and older breed of progressive white woman likes to talk about. I love when white women always talk about themselves like a minority. Now I understand America Ferrera is not a white woman, but Greta Gerwig is, the character of Barbie is, and the film, even though it claims that it's leading towards some kind of understanding or progress, it's still all done through the lens of white people. It's a very white film, and it's still kind of everything culturally is filtered through white people. I really don't think this film, even if it throws in like a token black female in the Barbie land, it really doesn't feel like a film that reflects where we're at right now in America as a society and what I think all women are going through. It seems like this very specific thing where I hate to say it, I think there's a bit of a privilege there with American women sometimes, where they think they have it so hard because they had somebody call them mean at work, and it's like I'm sorry, but like there's there's worse things happening all over the world to people and women, and honestly, you have it pretty good if you're a woman in this country. Even though there's things that need to change. We've never had a female president, obviously. We need to. I'm not saying that progress couldn't happen, but this idea of like women are held to these impossible standards. Um, it's there's some ego there that we can't say. If you point that out, you get criticized. That it's like, no, you just kind of have an ego about certain things. You're a little too sensitive about things that really don't matter.
You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people.
What? Okay, so you have to be a nurturer while also being a career woman. Once again, why? Why is this established too? Why is she going through these things? Like, she has a very successful, good job in the movie. It seems like they work with her relatively well because obviously Mattel wasn't going to let Warner Brothers criticize them more. So that's a factor with it. But this idea of like you have to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the time. Well, is that bad? Like you should be happy about being a mother if you have kids or a father, but a mother especially you should be positive about your if you're not then I'm feel sorry for you if you're not happy to be a mom or not happy to have kids. Maybe an accident happened, you didn't want the kids. I can get that, but don't talk about your kids all the time. Well, everybody gets annoyed with people talking about their kids all the fucking time. You know how much I hate on a talk show when a celebrity goes on and just talks about their newborn baby or kid and it's the same story. The problem with that is that everybody thinks their kid's unique and special, so they post all the pictures and talk about them all the time. And really, your story with your child's not that special compared to every other story that people go through with children. But this idea that women are held to this, like, you guys talk about kids too much. Once again, I think that's all exaggerated. I don't think that's a struggle. If one of your problems as a woman is that people are saying you're talking about your kids too much, you have the easiest life on the planet. If that's an issue, your life is amazing. That's such a non issue. Like, I know it seems dismissive to be like, why do you give such a shit? But you really have to prioritize like things in life for happiness or what you're doing. You have to focus on what does matter, what doesn't matter, what should I care about people saying, what should I not care about people saying. And people telling you that you should be a happy mother, but also don't annoy me with talking about your kids constantly. Honestly, I think that's pretty fair. Also looking out for other people, but you have to be a career woman. Why can't you have a career and look out for other people? That's just called being a decent person, unless you mean that you have to be cutthroat to get ahead in business, which is true, but these are just moral struggles everybody deals with. What do you do to get ahead, and what do you not do to keep some like level of yourself that you're happy with? But just Barbie here crying like, I can't believe she's saying this to me. It's mind blowing. Like what? This is also a problem I have with the movie. The whole Barbie slowly becoming human and her mother, the creator, coming and talking to her just seems so random to me going into the third act after the film seems to be heading towards a place where we're moving past a patriarchy and a matriarchy in some place that has some middle ground of progress, which a lot of people who love the film say the movie ends on. But the movie basically just ends on with everything going back to normal and they let one guy in the government. So they don't actually establish like a new world. They even set things up that don't go anywhere. Like, where do all the Kens go? We never find out. They even cut to Barbie kind of thinking about it like she feels bad, but she just says sorry to Ken for ignoring him and then just leaves him anywhere. And he wears a hoodie that says, I'm Knuff. And everybody's like, see, that's the statement of the movie. It's like, no, this is sloppy. This is sloppy storytelling.
You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed
I mean, I guess. You're supposed to be, I mean, I guess. I don't really, I mean, I guess I can sort of get this one, but you are complaining right now. That's the irony of a lot of these things that cut to women. It's like, what? So you just want to ramble and get away with it and feel valid? Once again, all this just screams white woman writing, white women mindset. It's like how white women see the world, this self-important. White people in general, honestly, have this whole like self-grandizing thing they do, where they're just so happy about like how important they are and how people try to bring them down. It's like, all right, calm down a little bit. I guess this one I'll give credit. I have seen this stereotype before that women are with a toxic guy and then people say things to them like they kind of blame them for being with the toxic guy. Not that I'm saying people shouldn't be held accountable for the people they choose to date, because on some level it is your fault. But I'll give this one a pass. It's not so bad. But once again, the writing is just so childish. There's nothing clever in this. That's the thing. It's not like there's punchlines here or the wording of it is really good. I'm not saying that you can't do this. I'm just saying, why can't it be a little bit more clever? Why can't it hit with some really universal resonant points that aren't so basic? I mean, this is that's the thing because it lacks nuance. You know, it's just these blanket statements. And honestly, you could break a lot of these down and find out how true they are or not. Just because like a lot of women think they feel this way. I'm not saying they think, they do feel that way. That doesn't mean that it's like an actual issue. You know, this is why we have data. This is why we look at things. This is why you have sociology. You have to break everything down individually. You can't just say in broad statements like, this is what a problem is. This is that we don't have solutions. And honestly, I don't think Barbie the movie makes a very good argument for a solution to this or a way to fix these things. It kind of compromises itself and tries to have everything.
to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful.
Yeah, but these are women problems. Like this idea that like you're supposed to be pretty for men but not too pretty or you threaten other women. This just goes in the cliche that a lot of people have that women don't have real friendships, that they're in competition with each other. And they don't have genuine, which I don't believe. I've met women that have genuine friendships, but this whole idea, like this is a toxic trait that's a woman to woman thing. Because I could tell you as a guy, and most guys, they don't give a crap if you're looking too pretty to stand out to other women. That's other women criticizing you for that, or this idea of like she's implying slut shaming or something, or looking too hot. It's like, okay, yes, from a looks standpoint, women are definitely judged much differently than men. That's absolutely true, but they also get more benefits out of it at the same time, which is not a good thing either. This idea like you have to stand out and be grateful, it's like, well, these are just things you whine about when you're like 14 or 15. If you're an adult, like this character in the movie, she's a grown up. She's at least in her 30s. You should be way past any of these things. You should be so beyond these things. These things should be childish to you. You should be like, who gives a crap if somebody thinks I'm too pretty or not? Or if I stand out. And also, we celebrate people for doing that. Like Taylor Swift celebrated for standing out. Billie Eilish is celebrated for standing out. This idea that like women take all this criticism, maybe that was true at one point, but I could be wrong. But it seems like I don't know. It seems like being a hot girl is like a superpower. I don't think it's a negative.
But never forget that the system is rigged, so find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful. You have to never get old. Never.
The system is rigged and then acknowledge that, but be grateful. I guess, I mean, that just seems like an American problem. Like in America, we have to be grateful for the privileges and the benefits we have of this country, but we also have to be aware that it is set up against you. Nepotism's a thing, class is a thing, your background is going to affect the rest of your life. That's something people don't like to hear. So I get that, but I still don't see where there's like specificity to that with women. And even the idea of you can never get old, I get that there's like you have to stay young and pretty forever. But once again, like, how immature are you to be hung up on that? Because you are going to get older. And that's everybody. Like, this idea I always hear, like, men age and women still want to have sex with them. Yeah, maybe sugar daddies, guys that have money or that are super handsome, like Brad Pitt types. But the average guy, when he gets old, some 20-year-old isn't want to get to bang that guy. Just like you have as a woman. Everybody gets less attractive when they get older. That's something we all, like, what's she going to say next? You're going to die someday. Can you believe that as a woman that I have to worry about dying?
Never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear,
never do anything. That's what she's saying. You just can't do anything. That's the problem with things like this. She's just saying it's like the self-importance. It's like never take a shit, never burp, never make a joke, never go outside, never get a tan, never go to Applebee's. You know, it's just never watch porn. You could just start listing anything off. You can't do anything. It's like, I'm pretty sure you have rights to do any of those things. I'm pretty sure there's no laws against you being selfish. And by the way, I've met women in my life. This is anecdotal, but a lot of them are selfish. And not all, obviously, just like anyone, but I've met selfish women and there wasn't social repercussions for being selfish. Like, I don't know what year they think this is. That's the thing about this movie. It feels like it was written in the 90s. Like, what world? Women, they get pushed now to be selfish. They get pushed to go their own way and not be defined by having a baby with a man. They're being pushed to do more with their lives and be independent, which is tied to selfishness. But this idea that it's like a criticism that women are selfish, it's like, well, it depends how selfish is the person. Because there's levels to being selfish for yourself or not. These are very like complicated things. But never fail, never show fear. Like, where does that come from? Women can't show fear. Are there people that are telling women don't get scared of things when you get scared of things? Like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, it's just random. Like, you can't have fear. What? So when like you're watching a scary movie and a girl like gets scared or something, I'm supposed to be like, "Oh, can you believe that she got scared?" I've never heard of that being a thing. Like women, and I could be wrong, maybe women get told that all the time, but I don't even know why somebody would say that to you. Never show fear? What the hell does that? In fact, that stereotype seems to imply to men more. I think I've heard that in movies with guys, like action movies, like don't show fear, don't let them break you, stay tough. I think that applies to guys more than it does women. I think we are all pretty much understanding of women showing fear for plenty of situations. I'd have no problem with the woman being scared if she was in a situation she should be scared of. That just makes sense. Fear is an emotion. It can't just be controlled.
Get out of line. It's too hard. It's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you.
Contradictory is a good way to explain everything you're saying in the speech and a lot of the themes of the movie and what the movie's trying to say. And nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. Once again, where is this coming from? Women get medals all the time and get told thank you all the time. I don't want to bring this up, but the two biggest things that happened last year were this movie and Taylor Swift Eras Tour. Both white women made things. Greta Gerwig, Taylor Swift, both tall, rich white women that got celebrated by everybody. Everybody celebrated Greta. Everybody celebrated Taylor. This is not the world we live in. Like, women do get praised. They do get awarded now. Maybe back in the day, once again, historically, this is a different point. But this idea, like, little girls need to hear this, like, they don't get a medal or they don't win anything. That's just not true, that you don't get praised for doing certain things. It depends on what you're doing or like if you're in sports and you're a girl and you win, you're going to get a trophy. If you win a prize for like some scientific discovery, you're going to get a medal. If you win an Oscar, you get the Oscar. I don't understand. The world is contradictory. The world is hypocritical. Society is, civilization is. These are all basic concepts that at some point you either have to grasp with and deal with, or just become a cynical asshole the rest of your life.
And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault.
This is all like filtered from like a white woman in her 30s that dealt with some kind of struggles when she was younger, particularly Greta Gerwig, obviously. But like, you do everything wrong. Women are wrong all the time, and everything's your fault. Even though all I've heard for the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years is how white men and male privilege and patriarchy and all this stuff is destroyed society and white guy. I mean, this is on the news. This isn't like me talking echo chambers. This is the mainstream news narrative. There's books about this stuff that did well. White fragility. New York Times articles cover this. I mean, it's all we've heard across the board. Unless if you're trying to say something like Rey from Star Wars, she's in the movie, she ruined it, she did everything wrong. If you're trying to use those things, this is like, that's the thing. This is so Gamergate. This idea that like, God, women are just held to the standard that they do everything wrong, everything's their fault. I want to know who's this mainstream woman who's a figurehead that gets the blame. Like, is somebody blaming a woman for the problems they have with Donald Trump? Are people blaming Kamala Harris for their issues with Joe Biden? Are people blaming women for the Me Too movement and not the men who all lost their careers, who did bad things like a Harvey Weinstein? What exactly are women getting blamed for? Is what I want to know. What is she talking about here? Like, is it just a guy says something's your fault? Like, Noah Baumbach co-writing this with Greta Gerwig. So is he agreeing with this? Does he tell her that everything's her fault? Or is he just a self-aware man that's transcended these limited ways of thinking? But once again, just to get through, the problem with this speech is it's very obvious. It's very on the nose. And that could all be fine, but it just, in a film that I thought for the first half was very well made, very funny, very entertaining, it all just falls apart here.